Excellency Mr. Ayman Amin Sejini, Chief Executive Office of ICD, for the welcoming remarks. Ladies and gentlemen, please welcome Mr. Ayman Sejini.
Bismillah ar-Rahman ar-Rahim, wassalatu wassalam ala Sayyidina Muhammad. I welcome you all. I'm so grateful that you have accepted our initiative. It's a very important day for us to be here. As you all see, the whole world is changing with the COVID-19 pandemic, which has been unprecedented. But Uzbekistan had welcomed us to be here physically. And it's such an exciting energy that comes together with it that we are all here together. But at the same time, this pandemic had taught us to be very close to technology and be very embraceful of what this technology can do for us. And we're all grateful that this technology has been able to help us and support us during this very difficult time. So the energy that comes with Uzbekistan flourishing and doing such a great job in the economy and the technology and the people, it's just amazing. And I think this energy is going to go throughout the countries of our member countries that are seeking and interested to be in this type of business line. So banking is changing, and it's changing fast, and it's changing to a great extent to have financial inclusion. The business of banking is not going to be the same anymore, in my opinion, in the next 5 to 10 years. And it's in the opinion of lots of institutions, and financial institutions, and chairmen, and businessmen, and investors. But the most that are going to be benefiting out of these changes are those that are going to have financial inclusion and really be able to use the capabilities of these fintechs. Financial technology brings businesses closer to each other. It gets people to be able to transact businesses much faster. It provides financing services closer to those that are in need and interested of growing their businesses. And no doubt, most importantly, it's also for those who want to do savings. Now, out of your seat, you just need to take out your mobile phone and you'll be able to look at some investment opportunities that you're interested in. And most likely, you'll be able to click on them and be able to invest in those investment opportunities that you're interested in. So the future is financial technology. Financial technology brings also along lots of other things together with it. Fintech brings information, transparency, and fast-growing initiatives. At the same time, we'll be able to see as financial technology a way of gathering big data. Big data helps also in artificial intelligence to give us much better understanding of what the clientele base is interested in. And we'll be able to give them much better services and enhance it. At the same time, be able to reach out to those that are interested to get the services in the way how they are interested in, and not anymore how the financial institutions used to be interested in. So I welcome the panel today to have a great discussion and really be excited to get lots of information out of it from you and really get to know how it's going to look like in the future because of you. I really thank you so much again for being here, and thank you.
Thank you very much, Mr. Sejini. Dear participants, and before we proceed with our next speaker, I'm inviting you now to watch a short video about ICD.
What does a business need?
ICD and Uzbekistan had a long relationship for the past 20 years where we have approved 30 projects for the value of 385 million. We are now very much excited to hear about the new Islamic banking finance law that's going to come up in Uzbekistan, whereby we'll be able to expand further our products in the sukuk, asset management, PPP, public-private partnership, and corporate finance projects.
İslam maliyesi sorusu değişken mi siz? Nelerden bilesiniz?
Have you heard about Islamic finance? We know that Islamic Development Bank, it is halal and without riba. I have heard about Islamic banking, but I don't have full information. Islamic finance or Islamic economy is fundamentally different from other finance. It's compliant with Allah's requirements. Islamic finance is the most efficient way to mobilize funds to secure economic development. In Islamic banking, it is prohibited to invest in industries that are not permitted in Sharia law. In Islamic finance, one more principle is that risks shall not be sent to one side, but they are shared between the parties. Do you have Islamic banks or windows in Uzbekistan? I know that the Islamic banks and commercial and trade companies, therefore there are no banks. However, I know that a few banks have opened Islamic windows. For development of private sector, Islamic Corporation is the right arm, and in the member countries, they contribute to developing the private sector. The Republic of Uzbekistan has become a member in 2003 and become a member to ICD in 2004. And after the membership, there's been some study period since 2006, and to date, $440 million projects have been approved for Uzbekistan. So through this investment, we were able to create more than 5,000 new jobs, and we can say that through these investments, we were able to introduce the alternative funding based on Islamic rules. At present, in our country, one more notable things in our country, we have in the 9 commercial banks, there are Islamic windows to be opened. And Asia Alliance Bank and ICD started cooperation in 2003. Our financing line was at the amount of $8 million US. Industrial Commercial Bank and ICD started cooperation in 2009. As of 2018, so along with the ICD for private investment, they were provided trainings on basic Islamic funding. So for development of private sector, the ICD in 2019, we signed an agreement on opening Islamic window at our bank and the agreement for funding. And in this area, we are working very actively. In February of the current year, our bank has made the largest agreement for 25 million USD with ICD. During the period where we worked, I was able to see that the Sharia compliant banking in Uzbek market, there is a great demand in our market. Considering that our bank operates in all of the Republic, we see that our clients express their willingness to work in this style. There is a great willingness and desire, and this was seen already at the negotiation stage.
Very interesting and impressive video. Thank you. Ladies and gentlemen, dear participants, now I am very delighted to welcome Ms. Sandra Rowe, CEO of the Global Blockchain Business Council, to deliver her keynote speech. Please welcome Ms. Sandra Rowe.
Good morning, everyone. And I thank Islamic Development Bank, ICD, and host country Uzbekistan again for such a wonderful welcome and support to my first visit to Uzbekistan. I am going to wear two different hats in my very short opening remarks. One is the CEO of the GBBC, the Global Blockchain Business Council. We are a Swiss-based nonprofit. We started with a handful of members. Now we have over 330 institutional members, from brand name global Fortune 100 companies to two-person fintech and startups around the world. We represent 76 countries with 130 ambassadors, and we are growing rapidly. We focus on bringing multi-stakeholders together. And if I have learned one thing coming out of the last 18 months that we have all struggled and evolved and adapted, is that we must continue to work together and bring multi-stakeholders together. And that private-public sector partnership is now needed more than ever. And further to that, I'm going to now put on my investor hat. I'm an angel investor as well, and I've invested across a number of different fintech companies. And I have one message for this group. And something also I've learned over the last 18 months, having struggled with some of my startups. Capital is moving. People are moving in the sense of digital, meaning you can set up a company anywhere. If the environment is correct and set up to invite entrepreneurs, they will come from all over. Maybe not even physically, they'll just set up shop in your jurisdiction. But that capital will come, the people will come, and we're seeing that movement. It's no longer a Silicon Valley, New York, and London only game. It really is not. And so for me, when I come to Uzbekistan, I'm not looking at the opportunity here of obviously making new friends and connections, but really what is going on very specifically with the blockchain, fintech, and tech ecosystem here. I've extended my stay an extra 2 days because I'm meeting with more startups here. And I'm very excited about the opportunities. And then connect that with, I sit on the AIFC FinTech Council, connecting that with what's going on in Kazakhstan and then the other regional countries, I see a great deal of opportunity here. And so ultimately, I thank you for the opportunity to be here for the first time. It is a first step in a multi-step journey that we will be taking, I hope, together. And I see great opportunity. If we work together, we will build a society that we want to see, where we can also have economic growth with care to society, where we care about the environment, and we don't leave people behind. So with that, I am very pleased to, again, thank everyone for all the support, and we hope we can have tremendous economic growth here in the region. And I'm here to support. Thank you.
Thank you very much, Ms. Sandra. Dear participants, so here we are now. We are going to start our panel discussion, which will shed light on Islamic fintech and cross-border financial services and how they played a vital role in restoring businesses during the peak of the pandemic. The moderator for this session is the Director of Financial Institution Development at ICD, Mr. Amir Hussain Khan. And I'm inviting Mr. Amir on the stage. And also, I would like to invite Ms. Sandra Rowe, the CEO of the Global Blockchain Business Council, Mr. Marvin Cole, Chairman, Co-founder and CEO of Owamba, Dr. Shahir Abbas, Founder and CEO of IFIN, and Mr. Daniel Uspana, Founder and CEO of the Islamic FinTech Tie-Up.
Bismillah ar-Rahman ar-Rahim. Assalamu alaikum, everyone. Dignitaries, excellencies, friends, ladies and gentlemen. MashaAllah, we have a great crowd and a big crowd on a Friday. Just to let you know, we actually in Jeddah do not work Friday. So this is overtime for all of us. Just want to pass on the message to our Excellency, Mr. CEO here. It's really an honor and a privilege to be here in Uzbekistan and actually talking about a topic which is so near and dear to our hearts, as well as it's such an important topic that we can invest maybe more than 20 hours and still not be done with it. And I'm sure all of you have an interest in this topic, inshallah. With that, I'd like to welcome our panelists, some of which I had the privilege to get to know over the last couple of days. And inshallah, I'll get to know you, Dr. Shatir. We really have a very rich and deep experienced panelists here who are hands-on. And I just like to say, and I will start off sharing a few thoughts, this is going to be hopefully a much more interactive session with our panelists. And then hopefully you would leave with at least a couple of ideas and a couple of clarifications on this topic. The idea is to really be engaged with all of you and less of a formal speech and much more an interactive and informal discussion. Let me begin by saying, which I was actually listening to one of the interviews from a Silicon Valley CEO, which I know our sister, we call them Sister Sandra, if you don't mind, shared with us from the Valley. And the CEO is, of course, I don't want to name his name, but the message was, what is the difference between a translation and a transformation? And I thought that's an interesting sort of viewpoint. So I'd just like to share that. Maybe some of you have heard it. But let me just begin by saying the translation, the way he understood, and again, he's from the Valley, so they think about these things quite a bit, is we took our physical meetings that we were holding in our meeting rooms and actually moved them overnight to a digital platform. And what I mean by that is essentially all of us saw the tremendous rise of a company called Zoom, which some of us actually ignored in the early stages of pandemic. So we went to Zoom. And again, there are all kinds of etiquettes and questions about how to use digital platforms. And I'm going to try to turn my neck all the way here, so if I don't see any of you, please pardon me, because I'm in a unique position here. But it took those meetings and put them digitally on a platform, on an electronic platform, for us to interact with. What a transformation then means is that you now have to rethink the entire process of these meetings. So how to conduct them digitally and still be more effective and productive. And I think that will be the challenge which I know some of us are already facing. So again, just to differentiate that, and I'll just kick off if the panelists allow me another 2 minutes, and I know I have to manage time well, because I've got people in the room that are going to manage me. But one of the two things that I'd like to share, I'm sure all of you have heard of Amazon. But what you may not know, the Amazon's profits and I'm talking about profits, not earnings or revenues. Profits, March 31st ending this year, were close to $27 billion. These are net profits for a tech company. And these profits were higher than the last 3 years, meaning 17, 18, and 19, put together. Imagine what Amazon has been able to accomplish. And by the way, the last 3 years, 17, 18, 19, were their most profitable years in the history of the company. So just the comparison of 1 year versus entire history of Amazon just tells you how powerful some of these companies have become. And we were talking about it a little bit, which we will hopefully explore during our discussion. And the second company I would like to discuss is Venmo. I don't know if anybody has heard of Venmo. Can I see some show of hands on Venmo? All right, a few. Now what you may not know, and I didn't know this, and of course my kids use the platform, is Venmo is a social service payments platform. I didn't even think something like this existed as I was growing up or even recently. Now Venmo has conducted close to $159 billion worth of worth of transactions just in the first quarter of 2018. And I don't even want to tell you the numbers now. And this is a social service payment platform. And then we can hopefully define it as we go along. So there are companies which are making such an impact that some of us may know or may interact with or may not know. So again, let me come back to our topic. I just wanted to kick it off. I love numbers, and I hope you all enjoy numbers as well. But as continuing on from our CEO's presentation in terms of the topic for today, the role of ICD's bridge platform. And I would quickly just say that it's divided into 3 phases. The first phase was we were soft launching it with just actually asking our member institutions to upload their transaction data. So it was just a form of collecting the data in a platform, electronic platform, so you can start seeing what people or companies are actually projecting and launching the projects. Our second phase of our platform is where we will actually start executing transactions, which means that all these barrage of emails that we receive will now be conducted through our platform, and the documentation process and sort of the process flow or the throughput, as we call it in the industrial world, will become a lot more efficient and a lot more centralized and focused, which should improve the execution time of our transactions. The third phase of this platform, which was a dream of our CEO, when again I was mandated, however I have a help of the entire team of our marketing and finance and treasury and everyone with me, is actually starting to distribute the products among our member countries. And that's Mr. Imam Sajini's dream, and inshallah we hope to accomplish that in our third phase, which hopefully will be launched soon. What it does is it will allow us deep insight into the 119 or 20 institutions that we have, where cash sometimes just sits, so we can start managing that cash flow, again, given all the regulatory boundaries that we have, as well as allow the distribution of investment management products, allow the distribution of project information where one division from one country in one institution can actually start investing in another country in another institution. Now, the bridge platform hopefully will become the centralized platform for ICD, inshallah, very soon. I just wanted to make sure that everybody really understood what bridge platform was, and of course we have got my colleagues here who can shed more light if anyone is interested. And it's really great to see all of you. Thank you for this time. Now I turn to our panelists. I don't have order of preference, so I'll maybe pick on as the topics come around. Now my challenge is, of course, the time, so let's say we may have about 30 minutes or so. If you don't mind, since we have our only female participant here, I'll begin with Ms. Sandra. Sandra, it was really good to get to know you, hopefully in the last couple of days, and thank you for participating. Since just given your title about blockchain, I think it may be relevant for the crowd to really understand. I know it's a topic in our CEO's heart. He always keeps talking about blockchain, by the way. So I just want to make sure I kick off with that. And if you can actually share some experiences on this blockchain technology and demystify it for our audience as well. Thank you, Sandra.
Thank you for that, and appreciate the opportunity. I'm going to keep it as brief as possible because we could talk hours about blockchain. So when I think about blockchain technology, the underlying infrastructure technology, I really think it's a better way to organize ourselves in terms of data information flow. And data, in turn, is also turning into value. So meaning, the innovation of the internet was moving email information around through email. That was kind of cool. It was free, right? So like, wow. Well, imagine now you can move money around the same way. It's almost frictionless. And we're seeing the convergence of that. Moving payments around as one use case, but it's moving information around in a secure mechanism and having an automatic sort of bookkeeping, timekeeping, verification component in a ledger. Most people would think, well, that's kind of boring, but actually, if you unpack what it does for different systems, business processes, it is actually quite revolutionary and illuminating. We talked about transparency here, that's already been mentioned. You have built-in audit function, so you reduce fraud and corruption. People will always, sorry, I shouldn't say always, there will always be bad actors, but you can help mitigate and find out who the bad actors are more quickly. when you have more transparent systems. So blockchain technology itself, where I think in financial services, we have very deep production level projects going on at the moment, still has not scaled to the point where we're seeing it across the board. And if it's done properly, by the way, the average person will never know it's running on a blockchain. It's just running on a blockchain. I really hope to see that development here. The very fact that I'm meeting with companies in the blockchain space in Uzbekistan just tells me, also by the way, blockchain technology entrepreneurs are everywhere. Every country I go to, I've yet to meet a country or go to a country where there wasn't a blockchain entrepreneur. So the growth is tremendous. Even though crypto is 10 years old plus, this whole technology space, it's got many decades to run. So nobody's ever too late. And for those who are interested in getting into the space, it's truly going to be a huge growth opportunity. I firmly believe that.
Thank you, Sandra. Hopefully, if you have any additional questions, I don't think we'll find a better speaker than Sandra to kind of help you understand and demystify, as I said, this whole blockchain. I turn to Mr. Marvin, who I had the pleasure of knowing him actually last night at dinner. We will have another speaker in the second panel also discussing this. Their journey is quite interesting. And Marvin, I know since Sandra had some opportunity to speak earlier, could you just briefly give your background and then give us some idea on this whole fintech/trade tech that you had come up with,
Sure.
which was also a very interesting way how you got there. And then share some challenges and opportunities because you've gone through cross-border.
Yeah.
So just share with the audience and us your experience. First your background and your company's background, and then inshallah get into the second part.
Certainly. Thank you. Assalamu alaikum, everyone. I'm one of the co-founders of Ovamba. We are a global but Africa-focused fintech and trade tech firm focused on creating wealth, particularly in least developed countries and countries which are undergoing transition. And what that means fundamentally is that we look to significantly improve or build financial systems, working with central banks, working with regulators, bankers, market securitization in a fully Islamic asset-backed basis. And also have the diaspora invest in their home countries where possible. The journey, however, has been unique in that I think I'm probably the only person here that accidentally fell into Islamic finance. Our company started with a focus on emerging markets in Africa. And there's a famous quote I often use, which is, everything's in chaos. The situation is excellent, Chairman Mao. And that describes in many cases and many parts of the financial system in West Central Africa, where we're focused. And the reality of that is there is no functioning system that meets the needs of the wide population. And the chaos is the informal nature of business, informal nature of finance. And the lack of transparency means countries are unable to grow because they cannot prove real GDP numbers. They cannot improve taxation. They cannot know risk of credit scoring, identity verification. And therefore banks cannot lend. Therefore investment doesn't flow and countries stay poor. We realized, coming from a background from McKinsey myself and JP Morgan, my co-founders from Rothschild Group and a few other companies, that you had to tackle this at an ecosystem level, and you had to create wealth by empowering the organizations and the people that were doing business, the traders. And we realized that if you actually go in and help people acquire the things they need to grow their business, and then sell them at a markup, again, a muhabaha, they grow, you're now a partner in their business. If you acquire real estate assets on their behalf and sell them over time, a dimension musharaka, you now have a tool to enable homeownership at a low cost. And we now found investors from Japanese trading houses that were looking for JV partnerships to invest and participate. And so we found the ecosystem of individuals that were doing business in a way that is fully Islamic, as well as fully ethical. And we eventually found this, this wonderful blend as we learned more and actually got heavily involved in Islam and with the the various governments and the ICD itself. So that's a journey, right? The cross-border nature of trade, asset ownership means you can scale your business, and you can scale in a way that uses a similar methodology to the scale that happens in e-commerce driven companies, because you're buying and selling assets. And most countries, most regulators regulate conventional finance, but don't quite understand Islamic finance, which gives an opportunity today to fast-growing fintechs and innovative firms to grow and scale and gain mass market share by solving the need. And when you solve the need of the customer, there is zero care from the customer's perspective of whether they've gone to a bank or they've gone to Ovamba or any of the other firms here to actually solve the need of getting the access to the asset they need, the house, the car, the inventory for their business, the raw materials. They simply care about having their problem solved. And we found that to be the key understanding that's pushing growth.
Excellent.
Thank you.
Thank you, Marvin. Moving on, Dr. Shire, how are you?
Alhamdulillah,
excellent. Maybe most of us don't need an introduction, but it would be nice if you could introduce yourself, as maybe some of the members in the audience may not know IFIN, even though quite a few of us do know. But I think the question will be similar, since you run this organization, from a fintech, which is financial technology point of view. What have you experienced? And I'm sure you talk to so many businesses around the world. From your perspective, someone looking on top of this industry as it's moving and developing and it's quite dynamic, please share your viewpoint and your experiences in helping us understand the influence of fintech and challenges and opportunities of it in the now and the moving forward world. Thank you, Dr.
Jazakallah khair. Bismillah ar-Rahman ar-Rahim. Wassalatu wassalamu ala Sayyidina Muhammad wa ala alihi wa sahbihi ajma'in. Thank you very much, everyone, and we thank ICD also for this great opportunity, and we thank also Uzbekistan to give us the chance to come and see this beautiful country. I just want to start telling about myself. My name is Dr. Shahir Abbas. I have a PhD in Islamic Financial Engineering from Durham University in the UK. It's a very niche specialist, as I started with Islamic banking since 2004 with the Islamic Bank of Britain, which was the first Islamic bank in the UK, and I was the first product manager there. And it was quite challenging because we were changing everything about Islamic finance in a country that actually did not have a retail, right, at that time. So every single product we're creating was actually a new challenge and a new uncharted water that we're going through. In 2007, I bought my first house, alhamdulillah, in the UK, and I went for a furniture shop actually to buy the furniture. And as I'm leaving on the checkout, the guy said to me, "Would you like to have a finance?" And I was actually coming with the mentality that I have to pay everything, directly in cash. And I say, "No, thank you, I'm a Muslim, I don't pay interest." He said, "You don't have to pay interest. It's a zero interest for 5 years." And I said, "Okay, that's interesting. I will try it." So he opened the laptop and he said, "What's your name?" I say, "Shahir Abbas." "What's your address?" I put my address. And he clicked a button. He said, "Congratulations, you're approved." This is in 2007 in the UK. And I was a product manager in an Islamic bank. And at that time, to give a finance, we were doing tawarruq. And it takes 2 weeks for us. And a lot of transactions and a lot of paperwork, and the customer has to come 3 times to and we have inside transactions and we have to sign on behalf of the customer. And I said, "My God, this is what I want to do." So the idea that we have now for IFIN, our fintech, that we actually launched just two months ago in Oman, this idea started in 2007. Now, I tried to do it in the Islamic Bank of Britain at that time. We prepared all the business analysis, the study, we presented to the board, but the cost of integrating our system with a local system, not creating actually the entire system, just integrating with a local system, was around £500,000. And just to give you the context, the bank's capital at that time was 10 million, right? So the board said, "No, we cannot do that." And the idea stayed with me. Later on, we set up our own Islamic finance consultancy. I tried to do it, But at that time, when you go to a bank and tell them, okay, look, I'm having this new system, I want to connect to your core banking system, they say, no, nobody can touch our core banking system. So the ideas that fintech now have open banking and open APIs, that was not the case at all. Nobody actually will allow you to touch anything. And we say, look, we know you are good in Islamic finance, consultancy, Sharia advice, but don't touch core banking system and IT. And that actually took me, I tried to do it myself, we couldn't actually succeed until I met Mr. Muhammad Khatib, the chairman and CEO of Path Solutions. They have IMAL core banking system, and they are specialized in Islamic banking system. They have around 150 Islamic banks who use their core banking system. And I met him in Dubai, and I told him, look, I have a sketch of 5 pages actually, presentation. I said, look, this is what I want to do. I want to create a platform to create all banks, to put them on the platform, and to put all types of retailers on the platform so people can take instant Islamic finance. Within 3 minutes to 5 minutes, I want the customer to be able to take a finance. This exists in the UK, but exists conventionally and exists where each bank and each finance company, they develop their own system. So one bank, they have the system and they have 10, 15, 20 retailers. But what we wanted to do, we wanted to build a platform where all banks can be there and all retailers can be there. So we start working on it. It took us about 3-4 years to get to the system to be done. Again, it's challenging, completely new idea, out if you want, out of the blue. I was in Oman at that time. And I was working with the central bank. I worked with all the banks, advising them. We trained all the staff of the central bank in Oman. Beautiful country, by the way, Oman. I advise you all to go and visit, inshallah, if you had the chance. And with all our, the relationship with the existing banks, our first bank, it took me talking to the management and convincing them from 2014 till the end of 2017. 4 years working on getting my first bank actually to sign, right? And it was free. I was telling them, you can get it for free. You don't have to pay anything almost, right? Then we signed, and then we trained. We found out that what we built actually doesn't match what the banks want. Now, you're having the Czech reality. They have completely different ideas, different things they want to do. So it starts changing. And then we hit the regulators. Now, the regulators did not know what we are doing and why we want to do that. So again, it took us about 2 years to get approval. Now, when we launched in June this year, actually, and now we were about to launch, and then Corona hit us, and then we lost another year in Corona. And then one of actually the senior executive at the bank saw me actually after we did the launch, and he said, Shahir, I have never thought that actually this project will come through. From 2014 till 2021, it took us 7 years actually to get it to launch this project. Now, it's the first of its kind in the Islamic banking, and the idea we're trying to do is that it's not actually to be able to match conventional bank. This is the first time ever we have a tool actually to leap ahead of conventional banking. So what's happening now in Oman, 5 out of 7 banks have signed up for IFIN, and hopefully we're going to get the 2 banks, inshallah, very soon. But what we want to do, we want to have every single finance transaction coming through IFIN. I just came back from Istanbul. We had 2 days, 3 days in Istanbul, and a fantastic country, mashallah. The changes that happened in Turkey in the last 3-4 years is just amazing. In terms of fintechs, we met a couple of banks there. They have their own fintech companies. One of the banks, they built like 10 fintech companies in 3 years. It's amazing how much it's changing. But yet, when they heard about our system, they say, we love it. Let's do it. And this is the beauty. What we have in our plan actually is to be in 20 countries in 5 years, and hopefully to all IDB member countries within the next 10 years, inshallah. And with the help of ICD, I think we can do it faster, inshallah. We can go to all the member countries in a faster. So digitalization, it's challenging because when you come up with a new idea, it's difficult to implement. But what happens in the last 3-4 years is just amazing. Everything is changing. We've seen how the economy and the infrastructure in Saudi changing. Saudi, one of the amazing countries. You can see how much in the last few years has changed. I can remember, one of the things that was amazing. Actually, I came, on the passport control. I had to put my fingerprint, I go out from the passport control and I want to buy a SIM card. And the guy with a mobile phone, and he has already access to my fingerprint, and he can identify me just literally 2 minutes later. And if they can do that, then we can do a lot. And I hope that this change that we bring is going to take Islamic finance to a completely new level, inshallah. Jazakallah khair.
Thank you, Dr. Shahir. We will hopefully have some time to come back one more round and pick on your brains a little bit better and a bit deeper. But let me pick on Mr. Daniar, who I've had the pleasure of knowing for a few, let's say, months. Daniar, the question to you will be slightly different because I would like the audience to benefit from your founding experience into a fintech company, especially in the Central Asia, which is very relevant to our venue. Give us a quick background of yourself, then your company, and then how did you get the idea to launch this, especially with there's so much development going on around fintech, to really become specifically for CIS countries? What did you draw upon? Which technologies you considered? And for you, what I would like to know is the efficiency and deployment of this technology and the acceptance of it from the institutions that you're dealing with. Hopefully you'll keep all that in mind as you answer this question. Thank you, Daniel.
Thank you. Thank you for this opportunity to be here, to share our thoughts, to share our experience. My name is Daniel. I am co-founder, one of co-founders of Tie-Up project. We launched this project this year. On Ramadan month, we have Alpha launch, and this Eid al-Fitr holiday, we launched Live. We entered the market. We started acquiring the clients, and for first 3 weeks that we are working, we have 15,000 clients already. So this is quite challenging in this region to run this such types of projects, and this is a big issue to discuss and to find out some approach. How can fintechs provide their services to the customers without having access to big venture capitals, without the existing framework, regulatory framework? And I'd like to talk a bit about open banking methodology. So the open banking is approach when existing banks give access to third parties to use their services through APIs to come up with new products, new services for the customers. And this approach brings with itself big changes to the market, to the financial market. So it's not about new technology. It is new technology. It is new methodology. But the crucial thing is new mindset. I agree with Sandra. This is the new mindset that should fintechs compete with the banks? Should they struggle? Should they fight for the customer? Or should they collaborate or cooperate for solving these issues like pandemic and so on? So the existing banks, they have a huge history, huge core banking system. They keep regulatory capital adequacy. They have to follow Basel III requirements and so on, so on. They have huge branch nets and so on. And but fintechs, they don't have all of that, but they have original approaches to customer requirements, to acquire customers. They have interesting approaches regarding the product development. And these two things, it's easy to cooperate and collaborate to bring these new products to customers. As Mr. Shahrabad said, the example with furniture, when he bought furniture, it is that such type of cooperation, collaboration, when trading, as Marvin said, when trade tech developing, it's, we have to cooperate, we have to collaborate, and that's the only way to go further. And we have such examples in UK, in US, so in UK, Rails Bank is its strategy open banking. They give access to fintechs to test their products, to make MVPs, to test it, and then once it's successful, to scale it rapidly. So I believe that this approach will take place in these emerging markets where we are from. So as a tie-up project, let me briefly say our plans. So we are not only a Kazakhstan company, we set up a holding company in DIFC. So the company responsible for the Central Asia market established in AAFC that Sandra mentioned. So it's Astana International Financial Center that is developing now quite rapidly. And we are targeting 700 Muslims all over the world in 20 countries with a Muslim majority. So we call our target customers Generation M. So it's not Generation Z, it's modern Muslims. So, and we are excited launching this year, and inshallah, we will go ahead, go abroad soon. Thank you.
Thank you, Daniel. Very interesting perspective. So since we have done well on time, so now I can get into a little bit deeper questions. Let me ask the question first, and then it'll be volunteer who takes the answer. Very democratic. You talked about transparency. Sandra talked about transparency in blockchain. The experience from, of course, the founder, Mr. Daniar. The culture of, I would say, transparency, secrecy, is kind of an interesting balance that I think we all have to struggle and strike, especially in the area where we see data breaches happening almost every week. Some of them you find out, some of them you don't, but there are data breaches happening all the time. I kind of want to turn this discussion a little bit into the culture of engaging with financial technology, because once you engage digitally, everything is recorded now. Everything is monitored. Everything is out there. What has been the experience among my panelists here in you noticing the sort of the landslide change that financial technology is bringing, and the customers or the participants' desire for security and safety and privacy? All of this is getting quite mixed up because the data goes out there, and then there are just volumes of algorithms that are run that are picking on these sort of sectors of consumers, and target marketing is happening all the time. So the question is, just so that we are clear, the speed of development of financial technology versus the safety, security, and privacy, because these are financially related transactions, and we all would like to safeguard some of that. So I will ask who would like to go first. All right, Marvin, go ahead.
I'll share perspective, again, with the African, South Asian view on this. I believe there's usually a misnomer when we think about information security and breaches only from a technological perspective. What we've seen in Nigeria, French West Africa, and South Asia has been that most leaks happen inside the bank from people, right? So it's not, and this is not just technology-wise. People literally bringing files out.
Let me just ask everyone, can everybody hear Marvin clearly?
Sorry, can you hear me? Better? Yes? Okay. So I was sharing that our experience has been when you get bankers away from microphones in a private conversation, they'll share stories of fraud, losses, and breaches of confidentiality that are common as individuals share information because it's a manual system, right? And people are taking files out, they're moving things around, they're talking about things they shouldn't be talking about. What we found has been that because we also provide cybersecurity solutions to monitor all systems that we put in, that when you can demonstrate that you actually begin to limit data and have better controls through a digital process, and that the stage gates and design of it is such that it's unlikely to have any breaches through sheer hacking attempts. Again, there's a lot there technically I won't go into. You usually find that people are very receptive. So the breach question and the concern has always been framed around, I'm going to be hacked. What you realize is that often files walk out of offices all the time. And this is particularly true in the least developed countries. I think 21 of them are members of the ISDB. And that's an even larger concern to the banks because, and even regulators, because often these are still stamped files, stamped titles. There's a fire, things disappear. So digitalization becomes a means of having a permanent record. The blockchain becomes essential for that. It becomes a means of having an immutable record. And then security now becomes embedded at a very deep and high level. And you can engage around what best practice looks like. Because every single breach we have seen and helped fix in the African perspective has been by someone giving access to the information they shouldn't have given access to a third party. That's our experience so far.
I just would like to comment.
Go ahead, Dr. Said, yeah. Please.
Yeah. One of the biggest challenges we face as a fintech is to convince your partners, whether they are banks or even the regulators, how are you going to protect the data? How are you going to manage it? Because this is one of the biggest concerns, and when you talk directly to regulators, this is going to be the pop-up first question, right? So before commercial, before business, before what you're doing, how are you going to protect the data? And we really found it difficult at all levels, because there's two types of data. There's the consumer or the client itself data, which is financial data, and also there is the commercial data. And specifically when, in our case, we are connecting, to multiple banks. And in our system, there is a multi-tenant system, and then the bank will say, all right, so I have all my information, my pricing, my product, my process, my credit criteria on your system. So how are you going to protect me from everybody else saying? And then, of course, the idea that, a retailer will access the system, right? And, what if somebody from the retailer side will hack the system? So the technology, and that's a lot of thinking and architecture, beside it. There is a lot of good solutions, and actually we came up with a very good solution to put this to bed for forever, from our concern and everybody concerned. So what we did, we had two separate applications, one for the retailers to access, and then one for the banks to access. So basically, they communicate between each other, the two systems, in a secure channel internally within our servers. But on the customer side, all the data we related to the customer side, actually, we put it in our database and we encrypt it. So basically, when we are on the cloud, any hackers will have to go through the cloud and through our security, through our firewall, and then get to the data. And if they do that, then they're going to come up with the encrypted information, right? So this is critical. And I told the banks now, what we have, actually the data, the security of the data we have on our system is better than the bank system. So anybody can hack into the system and get the data work. They don't encrypt. Most of the banks, they don't encrypt on their own servers. They don't encrypt. Right. So I am more secure than you. Bring all your data to me, right? Because that's the solution I have. And what we did also, because we have multi-tenant system, we created a public key for encryption and private key for decryption. And each bank, they will host their own key. It's like a safe. And you are the only person who has the key. right? So every single person from the bank who needs to log in will have to go and bring the key, the private key, decrypt the information, and make it available for them. So this type of solution as a security actually made it much, much easier. Now, it was very difficult also to convince them that this is secure, because when they talk to fintech, they would say, oh, this is always a risk, right? This is always a failure. But alhamdulillah, I think the technology is helping us now to move forward with these things, to be more secure. Now, I don't think there is a huge, protection against hackers, because there's always, loopholes in the system and they can do things. But you need to protect the actual essential information. If that's encrypted, then most of the cases this will be, will be the most secure solution.
Great. Thank you, Dr. Shahir. Anyone else would like to venture into this? Because I hope to have 2 more minutes to ask a final question with this panelist. Would you like to say a few words on the last one?
I just have one perspective on this, which is data is everything. It's our future. We're creating tons of data. More of it will come. The question now becomes, who creates the data? Who secures the data? Who verifies the data? Who stores the data? And who manages it? And when you think about the complexities, and then sharing, of course, who gives access to sharing of data? For the banking sector, it's actually not going to be just the bank. It probably is actually a multi-party system. But that actually means you need to design it with security first, not, oh, we have a database and we're going to stick some security around it. That model just doesn't work anymore, because hackers are getting better and better. And frankly, most of the hacking that occurs today, it's because people don't follow basic protocol. It's not difficult hacking. I spend a lot of time right now looking at cybersecurity. And when you think about the vast majority of what cyber hacks are happening, it's easy. The reason why hackers are making so much money is because institutions, and unfortunately a lot of it's government and corporates that don't have a lot of resources. Banks have resources, the big ones do, but smaller organizations do not. And unfortunately, they're easy targets. So, long story short, it's not just blockchain, it's not just AI, it's not just, whatever hype word you want to think of, but it is about us rethinking the honeypots of data that we are creating. Where should they sit? Should they even be honeypots? Should we actually be distributing them across so that even if a hacker does hack a bank, who cares? There's nothing there of value. So there's different ways of thinking that we need to have around cybersecurity altogether.
Excellent. Thank you. I just wanted to add what we have noticed, at least in the US, there are companies, back to Sandra's point, that are just becoming data warehouses, and some of them gone public recently. And they're housing data for airlines, for banks, for all types of companies, and it has become an intellectual property type agreements that are coming off of these companies. I'm sure you know. One of them that comes to my mind is Snowflake. They can actually run all the analytics you want on your data in their servers, which I thought, it's a really interesting concept that a company is willing to part with their data depending on a third-party provider and feel more secure than their own systems and servers in-house. So we are living in a very interesting world, and hopefully it will continue. Since we have to manage our time, I have a few more questions, but since I have the advantage of the next panel as well, what I would like to do is give a round of applause to our panelists for panel 1 session, and we hope that you stay along for the second one. So thank you, and these were really great insights, and hopefully you will mix around with the crowd here. The idea is to give you a glimpse of these people here, and then you can interact socially in network, lunches, coffees, teas, whatever you like. But please take advantage of the panels here. Our effort is to introduce them to you, and then you take it to the next level. So thank you very much for your efforts. Just quickly, in terms of admin, we would require about 3 minutes or so to change for the next panel. So what I'll do is I'll hold on here and entertain you with some stats while we thank our panels to make the way for the second ones. Please, thank you again.
It needs strong leadership, clear goals, industry expertise, and financial stability. Together, these elements can contribute to your business's success, growth, prosperity, and longevity. With a heritage of helping businesses to thrive, ICD can support you. As part of the Islamic Development Bank Group, ICD provides access to finance. We've spent more than 20 years powering positive economic transformation across our member countries. Our vision is for sustained economic and social growth and prosperity across all of our member countries. And we support that vision by offering financial security, long-lasting partnership, deep expertise, and complete trust, so we can develop projects.
Sir, salam. I'm going to call the next panel, so it's still on. Hello. Gentlemen and ladies in the crowd, I will call the second round of panelists, so please bear with us as we make the shift. I'd like to call Miss Viola. If I know I saw her earlier, so please make her way to the stage.
Issuance support and expert guidance. Plus, our online platform, The Bridge, opens new horizons to our network and connects financial institutions who are ready to do business beyond.
Mr. Saeed Hijazi, please come to the stage. I think I was looking for Miss Viola. Marvin, could you help me find her? Oh, there she is, mashallah. Good. Mr. Sam. Mr. Sam, please make your way to the stage. And Mr. Rustam. Salam.
My name is Abdul Bakar. I'm from Textile Association of Uzbekistan. Okay, they were talking about fintechs and we have some issues on financing companies, trade financing. I would love to talk to you for the channel and then start with them. I'll come down and talk. Madam, how are you?
Economic and social growth and prosperity across all of our member countries. We support that vision by offering financial security, long-lasting partnership.
She disappeared on me. I was like, where is she?
And complete trust, so we can develop.
If I can request kindly for the crowd that's standing to please sit down. We have an additional extremely well qualified, very dynamic panel, and I would love for everyone to benefit from them. Could I ask everyone to take your seats, please? My sincere thanks to everyone who is taking seats, so please don't leave the hall. All right. Thank you all. And once again, I have the privilege and the honor to welcome our second panel session. You will hear slightly different views, and hopefully we can make it just as interesting as the first one. Now, as I said, there's always never a good time or enough time to talk about these topics. And I know there are a few gentlemen in the crowd who would like to have a Q&A session. I have a very challenging job of managing the time. So what I'm hoping is, once we are done with the panels, they can be in the crowd and you all can benefit from their experiences in the crowd, as opposed to we take the time on the stage here. So I'd like to welcome my second panelists. Thank you again for all of you being here. Inshallah, we'll benefit from your experience. Again, traditionally speaking, somehow we have another lady on the panel, and she is the first one on my right-hand side, so we will begin with her. Ms. Viola, would you, again, I know your colleague was here earlier, but give us your passionate journey and how you got introduced to, and she comes from conventional background, by the way, and got introduced to Islamic finance, and I love to hear that story and have her share with us. And then the question will be a slightly simpler one for you, but again, the challenges and opportunities, and then the second round we'll get into slightly more entertaining questions on this fintech. So please introduce yourself, your company, and your view on how you got into fintech and trade tech. Thank you.
Assalamu alaikum, everyone. It's such a pleasure to be here and to be recently in collaboration with the ISDB and the ICD. My name is Viola Llewellyn, and I'm the co-founder and president of Avamba Solutions, Inc. And you recently had the opportunity to hear from my better-looking half, also known as my business partner, not my husband, please note that, Marvin Cole. He and I were sitting at my kitchen table trying to think about ways in which to help Africans become wealthy by taking advantage of the digital revolution that was occurring under the auspice of crowdfunding. As with most ambitious-minded innovators and techpreneurs, we pivoted through a number of models. But to give you a little bit of information about how these pivots came about, my personal background is one that comes under the heading of, I really should not be here. I really never had any intention of doing any of this, let alone becoming an Islamic finance digital innovator, sitting here in the company of some of the best panelists I know that you guys are going to get to hear about. My background started out being born in London of Cameroonian parents, intending to be a genetic engineer. Life happens, and before you know it, you're sitting on a stage in beautiful Tashkent, trying to explain to you that the African market for financial inclusion and trade tech is one that you really need to pay attention to, because where you're going, we've already been. It is a real privilege to be able to share with you why trade tech is important and what Avamba has done. We started in Cameroon because a little bit like Uzbekistan, it's got a bit of this and a bit of that. In the north, we have Muslims. In the south, Christians and other types. We have French, English law running concurrently, and we are part of a very, very large market known as OHADA. So at our fingertips, through our own digital innovation, are something like 17 countries sharing the same banking and business law, which means that we have to code and we have to serve individuals from various different ethnic backgrounds, cultures, and tribes with a number of very clever, distinct digital solutions to solve basically one thing: how to provide access to finance so that people can build lives that matter. I've kind of jumped to the end of the story, but I'm looking forward to sharing challenges and opportunities. But today, what we have become is a trade tech innovator to help small and medium enterprises gain access to the goods and products that they want to sell by reducing the risk associated with traditional lending and instead putting the inventory and the asset at the center of the transaction. Who knew that this was called a murabaha? That's because we fell into this by sheer mistake. And I think my colleagues here on the panel will share with you, anytime you are innovating and using technology to solve problems, you'll find other opportunities along the way. Those opportunities, when monetized, are what create the value of a company and what move markets and entire continents, and in this case, bring the world closer together. So I'm going to provide as much opportunity for some of the exciting things you're going to hear about today. But in a nutshell, what I want you to take away from this today is that there are companies out there similar to yours that share similar foundations and have the same respect for what it means to put money in the hands of those that want to drive GDP and move economies. Thank you.
How? Did you hear that? I told you you'll get one of the best discussions here. I would pick on her just for a few more seconds, if you allow me. It was very interesting, Viola, when you discussed the credit process. I would love for you to share within a minute or so how you took the ethnicity and these other variables to really qualify the people that sometimes our standard rating agencies just completely miss out. So I would just love for her to share this experience, which I thought was quite unique. Thank you.
I think you all heard Sandra talk about the value of data. Data starts with the best questions. Sometimes the wrong question will get you there, but in our case, we were looking at the credit scoring that is seen by microfinance institutions who we were partnering with, thinking that we could share risk by supporting their credit decisions and extending their treasury, which comes under very strict limits under BEAC and other central bank and policy makers. By asking the question, what do some of these people want to do with money, and where is the velocity of capital going, and whose pocket is the money in right now, allowed us to divert our attention away from traditional credit and banking behavior to trying to figure out what are people doing with money. Small and medium enterprises in the informal sector are trying to buy something and sell something. This gave us full permission to move away from credit and put us firmly in under the heading of Islamic finance by figuring out how can we reduce risk. And when you reduce risk and you're trying to escape from the Ministry of Finance's laws around banking, you stop thinking about interest and you start thinking about fees. That was the first step in this journey. And then you start thinking about, well, what's the value of the inventory these individuals are trying to buy? How can we keep it safe? And how can we make sure that we don't violate any laws by ensuring that the customer pays first before getting access to their goods? Who knew that that is a murabaha? And from that point on, Marvin and myself were with the Sharia Review Board of Bahrain. We became accredited, licensed, and compliant. And we stopped looking at the world from the standpoint of extending interest and credit. The next thing that happened to that was really exciting that we shared about last night was it became a direct attack against poverty. Lending and defaults on lending leads to debt. Not the kind of debt you want, and it can lead to poverty in the hands of those who do not have financial literacy. So you remove the impediments of success and wealth generation by taking care of the products that the customers are selling, removing credit, scoring risk with our own proprietary technology, and blending that into the physicalities of the environment. Most people are poor because they can't break out of the silo of cash flow. So by allowing our customers to buy the goods back at a rate that makes sense for seasonality, the inventory, its concentration in the market, and assessing the fees according to that service, you allow the smart customers to reduce the cost of their capital by quickly buying those goods back. And guess what, ladies and gentlemen? That's what you want from your customer. Buy these goods back as quickly as possible so that we can provide more capital for you to do the same. And that's how the defaults began to get low, and that's how the banks began to want to license our technology to embed into their own workflows and their traditional banking. I hope I've answered your question.
Excellent. Thank you. Absolutely you did. And I just wanted the crowd to benefit because we've had a nice discussion over dinner. And this is something that personally, even though I come from a very developed part of the world, but what we also lack currently is these nuances in this credit analytics. And of course, Sandra just came from the US, that there is this whole ethnicity, this whole fundamentals that sometimes are missed out, and then your credit decisions are very biased. And this is what we are finding, of course, in most of our Muslim countries, that the traditional model of credit scoring and rating is not really applicable. And the more we really understand with companies like yourselves, who actually took the time to understand the data. Right now, everybody talks about data, but I'll tell you, there are very few that really understand the data analytics. People have written books about it, but what I wanted you to hear, and sometimes we have to direct or distract ourselves a little bit to get the benefit of the panelists because they've done so much, and some of our practitioners that are, of course, also questioning some of these things. This is a very encouraging sign, and I hope some of the people sitting in this crowd will take the initiative, and I can already see some that are actually going to explore this further and hopefully enhance this credit distribution to these lower, small, or medium companies that are really needed. and don't fit into the traditional model. So thank you very much for answering that. Let me turn my attention to Mr. Saeed Hijazi, who also has a very interesting background, and I would love for you all to benefit from experience. And I'll ask a slightly different question, which we were expanding upon last night at dinner, is that the banks in the traditional sense have developed this trust relationship between consumers and, of course, the bank. And if I push you slightly earlier days where banks had just come out, people really didn't know, and they didn't want to trust banks with their money. I know maybe I'm talking about years away, but it was not that far back when banks did not have people's trust. And then all of a sudden you have banks as gaining tremendous trust. What fintechs and companies like Brother Saeed is part of is actually unbundling those now services that banks used to offer, like the current accounts, saving accounts, checks, opening of investment accounts, and all kinds of services, whether, of course, digitally or physically. With fintech's introduction, they're unbundling those. So the question becomes, and Brother Saeed actually asked me this, the fintech fatigue. I don't know if many of you would think like that, but definitely he has more insight into it. And what I would love, Brother Saeed, for you to do is just quickly give your background, your companies, and then try to reconcile this unbundling and how this trust factor is changing, and what can the fintechs do if they're standalone versus part of a bank or providing services to really reconcile this sort of landscape now. Thank you, Brother Saeed.
Thank you very much for the invitation and giving me the opportunity to tell you our story. My name is Saeed Hijazi. Along with my brother, I'm the co-founder of Wali. What we try to do is give people clarity and control over their financial lives so that they can increase their savings and reach their financial goals. The way we do this is we have a mobile app that allows people to connect all their bank accounts, so your checking, savings, loan accounts, as well as all your crypto assets or any of your investment holdings, so that you have one consolidated view of your whole financial life. You can track your net worth, you can understand where your spending patterns, what they look like, you can set goals, and Wali will help you reach them. Wali is available in 70 countries. We connect to over 15,000 banks, and we have about 3 million users around the world. Our top markets are the US, Canada, India, Indonesia, the UAE, Australia. And what people enjoy the most about Wali is the simplicity of how it works. We primarily focus on young professionals, millennials, people that are just joining the workforce for the first time. And what we're trying to do is really address the complexity of our own financial lives. Typically, people have a primary account for their checkings. You have a credit card from another bank. You might have a mortgage or an auto loan from another bank. This fragmentation makes it very hard to have control. People actually study finance to deal with these types of complexities from a commercial perspective, but for consumers, we don't have these tools, nor were we prepared for them. But to answer to Mr. Amir's question, when we started doing this, fintech wasn't as big as it is today. So the problem that I just described was a lot more acute. Today you have an abundance of digital wallets, cryptocurrencies, you have the access to investment in capital markets. This only exacerbates the complexities and the problems, making it even hard for someone to understand how much should they be saving, how much should they be investing. So that's where we come in. We think this proliferation of fintech services might inadvertently create more complexity, but we're very happy to bring some simplicity to all of that and help people take advantage of it and improve their financial well-being.
Thank you, Brother Saeed. We'll come back to you again, so you're not off the hook yet. My dear friend, Brother Isam, since you are a solutions provider, it'll be great to sort of ask you a slightly different twist on this question. How would, in the age where you're providing these solutions to the banks, where they're also dealing with the financial technology revolution or the fintech revolution, how do you see banks dealing with this digital transformation disruption that's going on? And again, we know banks are well capitalized, at least that's the impression. Some of them are, some of them aren't. But could you bring this perspective, of course, the traditional, please introduce yourself, your company, who you're owned by, because I think that's very relevant for the crowd here, and then try to reconcile this question from this perspective. Thank you, Brother Sam.
Thank you, Brother Amr. Assalamu alaikum. Bismillah ar-Rahman ar-Rahim. I would like to actually first, if you'll allow me, to start with the company. My name is Isam Al-Khashnam. I'm the CEO of International Turnkey Systems. International Turnkey Systems is a 40-year-old company. We've had actually our 40th anniversary this year. ITS has been, from inception, has been created to aid the Islamic communities and the Islamic communities and the Islamic market. There's a lot of untapped, basically, financial areas and financial inclusion for areas and, let's say, communities that do not actually do banking due to the fact that they are looking and eager for having Islamic instruments and Islamic banking and products available to them. And that's where the company was created to do so. We have been doing this for 40 years successfully, and we have actually, during these 40 years, the financial industry has gone through many, many different changes. These changes, of course, lately is what's so-called, and that's where maybe it's a question of the fintech, or is it now, or it's always been fintech. So I think this whole point of bringing in the financial technology to the customers, to the clients, to the users, to the customers of the banks, is the most important thing that we need to do. We also act as a fintech enabler to enable the likes of companies like Ovamba, Wali, to actually integrate and work together seamlessly and closely with the banks by providing our best technologies that can actually have a great bridge between the two entities. So how do banks survive this rapid and very fast-moving change in the financial sector? I was telling Brother Amr yesterday, the technology actually currently, or the pace of banking currently is moving in a speed that we haven't seen before. The analogy that I was using is when you're watching a movie and you fast forward. So you push it fast forward once, you push it twice, that's two times the faster the speed, and then you push it the third one, and I think this is what's happening in the financial markets. Banks and financial institutions are faced with this speed that they have to cope with. So I think one of the points that how we can help these financial institutions be on top of their game is through basically digitalizing their processes, making sure that they bring the digital fronts from their operations, from the back office, streamlining their operations, making sure that their operations are easy and agile and quick to address the customer needs. All of us bank. All of us need banking services. And it's important that I get what I need fast, efficient, and reliable. I want to make sure every time I go to my mobile to do my banking, I want to make sure that it's available and it's easy and it's definitely secure. Having these is very important. So this is where we come in, by providing a reliable, scalable, and available with the proper security measures, as definitely is cyber security now is everybody's nightmare. One CEO of a bank was telling me, it keeps me up at night. And it is actually an issue that actually needs to be looked at, and it's very important. And as Ms. Sandra was actually saying, the top banks have these people. And lately, because of the scarcity of such knowledge, even this knowledge is becoming top, to the highest bidder. So everybody's looking for the best resources in this. So digitalize the process, streamline the operations. Many of the operations that we have currently are, let's say, 70% of the processes that we do in operational perspective can be automated through process automation, bringing robotics into the equation. Not forgetting the ability to make sound and key decisions, which is very important through proper artificial intelligence, data analytics, as also Brother Ayman was saying in his opening speech about the big data. So the wealth right now that we have is not the number of branches or the number of systems, but it's actually the data that we have in these systems and how we can actually make the best use of it. Use proper analytical ways to actually come up with the best decisions for the customer. So basically, this is how we will serve them, making sure that they're on top of the game, exposing their services by giving them the best solutions available so they can actually have the ability to work with all the fintechs in the world and embrace this basically speed. One thing that I want to also add to the equation is this cannot be done without regulators coming in and becoming more flexible, bringing more flexibility to this whole equation. And I would like to also, if you'll allow me to end with, this is what we actually do, and this is what we did recently with Tawheed Bank in Tajikistan, whereby actually we converted them from a conventional bank to an Islamic bank. And we were able to actually do this within 6 months. The bank and the CEO of the bank has honored us with his presence. Basically, just reading some of the numbers that they have, they've grew their customer base by this transformation by 1,000%. And their remittances grew 400% within 1 year. And this couldn't have been done without the collaboration with them, the central bank, and of course, having our own experience to actually do this. So I hope I answered your question on this one.
Absolutely, and more.
Thank you.
Thank you. Good to hear the example of Tawheed Bank, because I had the opportunity to meet with them Absolutely. 2 days back, yes. So we will pick on you in a few minutes again.
Thank you.
Let me introduce our fourth panelist, Brother Rustam, who I had the pleasure of knowing just very recently. And I think this is something interesting that he has launched, which we also are aware of another company based in Bahrain that is doing similar things, which we call e-Murabaha. And again, that's something that will keep coming up more and more as we streamline the process of our Islamic financial transactions. So Brother Rustam, I would love to have you introduce yourself, your company. You're from the region, so we welcome you. Of course, you're welcoming us in a way. But please explain to us your background, the company, and the digital products that you have launched. Thank you.
Bismillahir Rahmanir Rahim. Thank you, brother, for giving me an opportunity to present today. Your Excellencies, dear guests, ladies and gentlemen, Assalamu alaikum wa rahmatullahi wa barakatuh. My name is Rustam Rahmatov, and I am the CEO and the founder of Iman. Iman is a young company from Uzbekistan. We are the first Islamic investments company in Uzbekistan. And our vision is to promote Islamic investments globally. And we are in cross-boundary, cross-border investments ecosystem. The problem we solve here in Uzbekistan is quite big because we are a Muslim majority country. There are 90% of Muslims in Uzbekistan. And according to the stats, 90% of them say that they do not use banking services because of their religious beliefs. And 68% of them say that, and 60% of businesses quote that the same. So as a result, you have billions of dollars under the mattresses of individuals. And as for technology users, there are 18 million young digitally connected Muslims in Uzbekistan. So our global vision is to transfer the capital from the developed countries to developing countries like Uzbekistan in order to bridge the gap we have in the world and Islamic finance ecosystem. So what is Iman? Actually, what is Iman Invest? The solution that we provide to our customers is accessible investments, capital management, retail financing, and business financing. It means that we provide investors the tool to invest, the retails and corporates, and we provide the individual customers and the businesses the financing. So we use pools and gathering the pools of investors, we invest in retail or business financing. So we launched a couple of months ago. We grow more than 100% month on month, and we aim to show great impact in Uzbekistan and globally. And investments is always about trust and great customer experience. And when it comes to the trust, I believe that technology is the only way to provide trust to your customers through transparency and through technologies like blockchain and others. Thank you.
Right, thank you, Brother Rustam. Let me ask this question that I've been somewhat mulling over myself, and hopefully some of the audience can relate to this. There's a big push, I don't know if I should say push, but there's a big incentive or encouragement from the central banks about the digital bank, and it's become a fairly fast-moving phenomenon. I'm still struggling to see whether true digital banks versus the traditional banks who are investing millions, if not billions, in technology, how did this paradigm shift will take place? There is, of course, a whole, as I was talking earlier about transformation, so a digital bank, by the virtue of its definition, should not have any physical branches. It should be all digital. I would love to hear some thoughts, of course, keeping the time in our minds. Just quick 2 minutes from each one of you. I'm not going to make it too democratic, so I'll pick on all of you. And then if we have time, we may allow maybe one question from the audience, if my colleague here allows me. But how does the pure digital bank compare with traditional banks who are becoming quite savvy in digital transactions? So that's the question. I'll pick on you, Brother Issam, first.
Well, thank you. The conventional bank, of course, is built around retail, small and medium businesses, and corporate. Many of the digital bank initiatives currently are still focused on retail banking. Some of them are trying to move to the SMB, but definitely it's quite a challenge to actually move to the corporate. I think if I may just take it from a process perspective, retail banking is much easier. The cycle and the user journey or the use cases that actually happen with retail banking is much easier to transform to a digital format because of the check maker and checker concept. SMBs becomes a bit of a tricky manner because you have to have certain processes in place to handle the digital banking. And we have to take into account also where the regulator, and the key word here, actually comes in making that transition flexible. But definitely looking at how some of the digital banking initiatives that are happening recently, they've done a great job in addressing the retail banking markets. The smoothness, the user experience and the customer experience that are actually being given to the community, be it from a conventional or Islamic banking perspective, has been phenomenal. I see very good initiatives, very good successes in that area. The really key point here is how do we actually address SMBs and corporate? And this is going to be a challenging part from a digital banking perspective.
All right, good. Thank you. Yes, please go ahead.
I know we didn't want to mention the word COVID, but it just so happens that when COVID began, Marvin Cole, my business partner, myself, and our team in Cameroon had a bit of excitement around the idea that we had been touting digital processes for finance and banking since 2014. So we immediately went back to the banks, and it's very similar to the story of one of our previous panelists who said it took them 7 years to get a deal done. And now I understand why. But the whole digital transformation thing, we thought we had that in the bag. We could not have been further from the truth. But it relates to what you asked me earlier. It's got a lot to do with culture. There in Cameroon, Central Africa, West Africa, where we operate, it reminds me of the days when your parents get up in the morning, put on their best suit, and go down to the bank to do business and try to impress the bank manager by appearance and sentiment. Well, when we went to these banks and said, COVID-19 means that you and your customers must now part, we've got digital solutions for you, they were not ready to bite this. That's because of trust. Now, the digital engagement is the next step in trust, but there are still parts of our community where people want to know that the tribe of the person behind the counter or the school that they went to is the point of commonality upon which to balance trust, even in banking. When we started in 2013, we were already with a digital mindset, and we picked up the phone and foolishly asked, would you like to have some money? Absolutely not. I don't know you. Don't know where your money's come from. So even though there is not a digital process in many African markets, the idea that KYC and AML is balanced upon, do I know your mother? Am I in the same informal sharing tontine as you? So we had to go right back to the beginning, take all of these ideas and these thoughts and figure out, why does one tribe behave this way over another? Can we digitize that in order to re-embed trust from the African perspective and then translate that to our risk models? And that's how we ended up come full circle to COVID and the banks not wanting to embrace digital processes because they're in crisis, so therefore they didn't have disaster recovery. We can help. They had not got the wherewithal of the regulator. We're talking about parts of the world where the laws haven't even been ratified for a PDF to be an admissible piece of documentation or evidence in a court and electronic signatures. They ain't there yet. So we still have a process to go. And what does that mean for those of us? Opportunity. So bring on the digital, we're ready, but we must, for people like ourselves, embed that with the cultural journey of acceptance and trust.
Excellent. Very good. Thank you for that. We may run out of time very, very soon, but I'd like to ask Brother Said if you can quickly comment on that, because you are somewhat dealing in this middle space, is what I call it.
Thank you. To start off, I completely agree with both what my co-panelists were saying, but I think we're still at the beginning of what digital banking is going to look like. We're seeing different types of services coming out from different markets. Sometimes it's because of the regulatory environment is different. In Europe, it's a lot softer. You can become your own bank. In the US, it's a lot more stringent, so you sit on the infrastructure of an existing retail bank and you try to build these digital experiences on top of it. What a lot of these startups or a lot of these fintechs are doing, if you take a step back, and Mr. Amir alluded to it earlier, was the unbundling of what retail banks are already doing. A traditional bank, they have depository services, credit facilities, and what fintechs are doing is trying to focus on one of those verticals and doing it really well. So I think when people say a digital bank, what they essentially mean is the depository services, a spending account, a card, whether it's virtual or plastic, and a full end-to-end digital experience. And when we say end-to-end, it means onboarding as well, meaning KYC is fully done online. You upload your passport, you take a selfie, and all of a sudden you have an account. These are the types of experiences the younger generation is used to. These are the types of experiences they're going to expect from their financial services, because the line has been blurred between signing up to a social website or platform to signing up to a financial service. These digital banks, so this digital onboarding, the processing of data, the distribution channels, are different for different types of services. We know about peer-to-peer lending, we know about robo-advisors and such. Now, when it comes to the economics of these different business models, and this is where I think there's still a lot to be learned, there is still a lot of trust that needs to be established between the new fintechs and the customers, because the trust isn't completely gone like a lot of fintechs hoped after the first, the Great Recession, which created the birth of fintechs. So it's an exciting time ahead, and like she said, there's a lot of opportunity to go around.
Thank you. Since we have managed the time so well, I think we are going to get a reward here. And what I would like to say is that thank you, all of you. I think it's been quite educational, I hope, for me, as well as for our panelists, as well as for the participants. We think we are going to live in a very exciting world. Hopefully we can get through this as well as we can. So again, thank you very much. A round of applause, please, quickly for our panelists. Thank you all. Administratively, we will move into an award ceremony, which again our MC will take over. So we are going to walk off the stage. Thank you very much again.
Thank you very much. We would like to thank our moderator and all our panelists. And we have received many questions and inquiries from the participants, and also through Zoom and YouTube. However, we will send all answers to the concerned participants. Thank you. Now, ladies and gentlemen, dear participants, we have come to our end ceremony, where ICD announced the winners of its 2020 Global Finnovation Award, where financial institutions in ICD's private network were invited to submit their financial innovations and financing solutions that contribute to the institution's sustainability and growth and significantly impact their communities. These solutions were assessed against a number of criteria, out of which this contribution to the Sustainable Development Goals, CDGs, was of high importance. And please welcome to the stage Mr. Ayman Sejini, CEO of ICD. And I also would like to invite on stage Dr. Mohammed Aliami, Director of Development Effectiveness and initiator of the award. And now please welcome and let's applaud for our winners. Our first winner, Alif Bank from Tajikistan, for the innovation solution, e-wallet, Alif Mobile, Salam Retail Loan Card. And I would like to invite Zukur Shah Rahmatullayev. Mr. Zuhsho Rahmatullayev, congratulations on winning this award. Ladies and gentlemen, please welcome our second winner, Islamic Bank of the Maldives for the Innovation Solution Lifestyle Financing to meet consumer demand. And I would like to invite on stage Mr. Abul Ehtisham Abdul Muhaymin. Congratulations. And now please welcome our third winner, Bidaya Home Finance of Saudi Arabia for the Innovation Solution Data-Driven Marketing Campaigns. Mr. Mazin Al-Gunaim, we would like to invite you on stage. And our fourth winner, Green Delta Capital Limited of Bangladesh for the Innovation Solution, GD Planner. I would like to invite on stage Mr. Rafiqul Islam. And our fifth winner of this award, WeFark International Bank of Tunisia, and we will give them the award later. And now, once again, I would like to ask all the winners who has just get awards to come on stage for group photo. And all the speakers as well. Please, all the panelists, speakers, our moderator, we would like to invite on stage for a group photo. Ladies and gentlemen, dear participants, with that, we bring our forum to its successful landing. Once again, we would like to express our heartfelt thanks to you, to all the speakers and organizers of this event. And you can have more information by accessing the ICD's website. Thank you very much for your attention and for being with us today.
What does a business need to succeed? It needs strong leadership, clear goals, industry expertise, and financial stability. Together, these elements can contribute to your business's success, growth, prosperity, and longevity. With a heritage of helping businesses to thrive, ICD can support you. As part of the Islamic Development Bank Group, ICD provides access to finance. We've spent more than 20 years powering positive economic transformation across our member countries. Our vision is for sustained economic and social growth and prosperity across all of our member countries, and we support that vision by offering financial security, long-lasting partnership, deep expertise, and complete trust, so we can develop your projects and your expertise. Through our diverse range of Islamic finance products, such as line of finance, term and equity finance, your business will enjoy new opportunities. You can receive funding for existing and new projects, gain access to technical expertise and valuable training, and contribute meaningfully to your sustainable development goals by creating new jobs. Our support even extends beyond finance, with advisory services, debt capital market development, sucker issuance support, and expert guidance. Plus, our online platform, The Bridge, opens new horizons to our network and connects financial institutions who are ready to do business beyond their borders. Whatever eligible sector you work in, we can help you build a strong foundation on which to grow, so you can move forward to achieve your ambitions. What does a business need to succeed? It needs strong leadership, clear goals, industry expertise, and financial stability. Together, these elements can contribute to your business's success, growth, prosperity, and longevity. With a heritage of helping businesses to thrive, ICD can support you. As part of the Islamic Development Bank Group, ICD provides access to finance. We've spent more than 20 years powering positive economic transformation across our member countries. Our vision is for sustained economic and social growth and prosperity across all of our member countries, and we support that vision by offering financial security,